Alright, let's get started with setting up our project. For this endeavor, we'll be using a combination of powerful tools and technologies. First up, we have JavaScript, the programming language that will bring our app to life. To write our code, we'll be using Visual Studio Code, an incredibly versatile and user-friendly IDE. Running our app smoothly is made possible with the help of Node.js, a powerful framework. And guess what? We'll be building our app right on Telegram, a platform that holds endless possibilities. Don't worry about gathering everything you need. The link to all of the necessary resources will be provided on the video description. Before we begin coding, it's normal for things to not make sense right away, especially if you're new to coding. Don't worry, with practice and repetition, everything will start to make sense. Now let's get started. Okay, let's create our very own 8-ball app. To start, let's open up a folder on VS Code where we want to put our project. This will be the workspace for our app. Inside, let's make another folder using mkdir or make directory, then the name of the folder we want. To go inside the folder, let's do a cd, then the name of the folder, then hit enter. Now, let's move on to building the list of answers for our app. Let's create a text file where we'll list down our answers. We'll categorize our answers into different types. Yes, yes or maybe, no, no or maybe, sarcastic, and witty answers. This will give our app a wide array of responses for different scenarios. Now that we have our answers categories, let's list down the corresponding answers. We'll capture all the possibilities for each category, allowing for a rich user experience. With our list of answers complete, it's time to store them in a more readable format for our app. We'll use a JSON file to achieve this. Here, in VS Code, I'll create a new file with the .json extension. JSON, or JavaScript Object Notation, provides a structured and easily readable format for storing data. We'll write down our answer list in a key value format, with each category serving as the key and the corresponding answers as values. In here, we're just copying over the answers from our text file. Let's just wrap up the answers and we would have an organized JSON file for our 8-ball app. Now we'll initialize our project and install the necessary dependencies. To begin, we'll initialize our project by running npm init command. We'll then need to input some details like package name, which would be the name of our project, then description, short description of our project, entry point, this would be the name of our JavaScript file. Now we can put in our name or alias on the author. After that, it sets up our project and creates a package.json file. Now that our project is initialized, let's move on to installing the required dependencies. The first library we need is Telegraph, which enables us to interact with Telegram. We'll install it using npm install telegraph command. Next, we'll install .env. We can install it by running npm install .env command. Lastly, I'd recommend installing Prettier. The command would be npm install --save-dev prettier. This would be installed as a development dependency. Let's now set up our app on Telegram. To do this, we'll need to find and chat with BotFather. Once we find it, let's chat and click start to initiate a conversation with BotFather. Now that we're connected with BotFather, we'll type or click /new bot in the chat. This command will prompt BotFather to guide us through the new bot creation process. The first step is to give our bot a name. Next, we'll need to provide a username for our bot. This username should end with the word bot and should be unique. By completing these steps, BotFather will generate an API key for us. It's important to keep this API key, by the way, secure, as this is basically our keys to our app. Okay, let's dive into the coding process and start building our app. We'll begin by creating a new file called 8ball.js. This is our JavaScript file for our program. Now, let's add the dependencies installed earlier, Telegraph and .env, to our project. With the dependencies added, let's load our environment variables and create an instance of our bot. By the way, to ensure our app is secure, we'll need to create a .env file. This file will hold the API key we obtained from BotFather earlier. Our environment is now set up, and our bot instance is ready to go. Now let's start building the functions for our bot. The first function we'll build is the start command function. This function will serve as a welcome message to our users, providing an introduction to its functionality. With the start command function now implemented, we can work on the guide function. I'll leave this function for you to define later. Lastly, we'll create a help command function. This function will provide users with a list of available commands within our app. With all of the commands complete, we now have a foundation for our 8ball app. By the way, let's set up prettier to keep our code neat. We'll create .prettier.rc file to define our preferred code formatting rules. .prettier ignore file to specify the files and directories we want prettier to ignore. Now to run our app, we'll need to add bot.launch. This will start the bot and make it active. Great job so far. Let's test our app to see if everything is working as expected. Okay, let's test our 8ball app setup on Telegram. To begin, let's open our app by clicking the link provided by BotFather. This link will take us to our app where we can interact with it. Now let's click on the start button to initialize our app and begin the interaction. Okay, our app is now up and running. Okay, let's try /help in the chat. Our app responds with the list of available commands. Let's put in /guide. Perfect. Our app responds accordingly. Okay, let's move on. But before we move on to the coding of our next function, let's fix some stuff and add some details on the start command. Okay, now let's code and work on implementing the random number generator or RNG functionality for our 8ball app. For starters, we need to read the JSON file containing our answers and save it to a variable. Okay, by the way, we need to add fs as well to read the JSON file. Now let's create an object that allows us to assign a percentage value to each response category. This will ensure that the distribution of answers aligns with our desired probabilities. Let's align the keys as well on our JSON file based on our percentage object. Next, we'll build on the logic for generating a random number between 1 and 100. This number will determine the category of the answer. Okay, after getting the category, let's build a logic to randomly choose between the responses within the category. By the way, I noticed some typo on the code. Let's fix it together. Instead of responses, it should be response to match our JSON file structure. Excellent. We now have a foundation for our RNG functionality. Next, we'll focus on coding the functionality for asking a question in our 8ball app. Let's go. To begin, let's implement the code that handles the process of asking a question within our app. First, we'll create an array to split the command /q from the actual question entered by the user. Next, we'll check if the array's length is equal to 1. If it is, it means that no question has been asked. We'll reply to the user instructing them to ask a question using the command /q. Otherwise, if the array's length is greater than 1, we can grab the question from the second element of the array. Now, we can call the getRandomAnswer function to generate a random answer for the question. With the random answer generated, we can now display the question and answer a reply to the user. Alright, it's time to test our asking question functionality and see if everything is working as expected. Okay, let's type /q, am I handsome? And see what the response we get. Here goes. Looks like the app replied most likely. Well, I guess I can't argue with that. Now we'll be implementing a button logic for our 8-ball app. Let's dive right in. To add a button functionality, we'll start by creating a new handler named 8-ball. Inside the handler, we'll create an inline keyboard. This will allow us to display a button within our app. To create the button, we'll make use of the markup object from Telegram. We'll give the button a name such as getAnswer and a callback name of answer. Once the button is set up, we can reply to the user with a text message that includes inline keyboard. Next, we'll need to build a callback function to handle when the button is clicked. We'll need to validate the callback name to ensure it matches answer. Inside the callback function, we'll generate an answer by calling the getRandomAnswer function. Finally, we'll reply to the user with the generated answer. Alright, it's time to test our button logic to see if everything is working correctly. Okay, let's type /8ball and see what happens. Oh look, we've got a button. Let's click it. Okay, it returned an answer. Let's try it one more time, just to be sure. Okay, it works flawlessly. Our button logic is now in place and working as expected. Now, not to overload our servers, let's implement a delay between answers. To add a delay between question and answer, we'll need to create some functions. First, let's create a save user tracking function. This would accept a user tracking variable as an argument. Inside this function, we'll use a user tracking details in a JSON file named usertrack.json. We'll wrap this code in a try-catch block to handle any errors that might occur during the writing process. Next, let's create a load user tracking function. This function will read the usertrack.json file and return the details stored within it when called. Now that we have these functions in place, let's incorporate them into the 8-ball command and the question command. For the 8-ball command, we'll start by retrieving the user ID from the CTX object. We'll then load the user tracking data by calling the load user tracking function. Let's add the resting period of 5 seconds for now. Next, we'll check if the user has accessed the app within the last X number of seconds, based on the rest variable. If they have, we'll reply with the remaining number of seconds. If the rest period has passed, we'll proceed with the normal process of the 8-ball command. Once the process is complete, we'll create a user tracking object within the user's data, including the date and time of the last access, and save it using the save tracking function. We can copy this code and incorporate it to the question command as well. Alright, it's time to test our tracking functionality and see if everything is working as expected. Let's start by using the 8-ball command. I'll click the button and use the 8-ball command again immediately. We should observe a rest period in between. Now let's test the question command by asking a question and then asking another question shortly afterward. Okay, our tracking functionality is working as intended. The app is taking a rest in between commands. Okay, before we wrap up, let's add all our commands to the /help command so users would have a complete overview of what our app offers. Alright, it's time to test our fully functional 8-ball app and make sure everything is working smoothly. Let's go through all of the commands we've implemented. /start, /guide, /help, /8-ball button. Okay, let's repeat the /8 button command. Okay, let's ask a question. Am I going to be rich? Let's ask that question again. Fantastic. Our app is working flawlessly. Now that we have a fully functional 8-ball app on our fingertips, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more exciting content like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Stay curious, creative, and keep coding.